Disappearance. My book is about a disappearance. I want to tell you about how I got the idea to write The Long, Long Afternoon, and it was one day I was at work being very bored. I looked at Wikipedia and I found a list of people who disappeared, and very quickly noticed that men tended to disappear throughout the centuries, and they went on exploration tours, they went to wars, they went to find new continents and somehow vanished. Women didn't really disappear until the 1940s and 50s, and I could tell from this list that most of them were probably murdered. And I thought, well, this is very frustrating. Men disappear on adventures and women disappear because they are being killed. So that gave me an idea to write a book about a woman who mysteriously disappears in the 1950s. And as we explore her last day, we learn what happened to her, but we also learn everything that led up to her disappearance, and we might get an insight into her character. And we made, I wanted to take a story of a simple disappearance and make it about a complex, interesting and multifaceted character. Characters. So for me, characters are the most important part of a book. I think plot is important because you need a story, of course, but the characters are really what make and break the story. And I believe that if you have strong, interesting characters, you can basically let them loose in a scenario and they will tell the story themselves. And it's quite interesting to explore where the characters will go. So when I started to write The Long, Long Afternoon, I didn't quite have an ending figured out. I didn't even really know how the crime would be resolved. But I thought, I trust my characters. I'm going to put them into this situation and I will see what they do, and that will take me to the conclusion. There was also a surprise character in the novel. So Joseph, who is the boyfriend of Ruby, one of the main characters, I hadn't planned for him at all. He just popped out while I was writing the book and demanded to have a story and be heard. And so I said, okay, now you're here, let's see what you're going to do. And he became not a main character, but an essential character of the novel. White privilege. When I came here, I got offered several words. One of them was racism, one of them was white privilege, and I thought, I don't really want to talk about racism because it's not something that I have experienced and that I can't really comment on, but I can comment on white privilege. Now, I wrote a book featuring an African-American character, and I know that that was a debatable choice to make, and I debated it for many, many months with myself to see whether I could actually pull it off. I've done it now, so I have to say it's possible, but I think one important thing for white authors who write about characters of other races or other cultures is to be very aware that you are moving into a space that is not your own, and to maybe be aware of the things that you cannot write about. So some things I decided not to do. For example, I didn't really write about a direct racist experience for my character, and I also didn't write very much about the civil rights movement, which was going on at the time. It features in the novel, but I decided it's not really my story to tell, and sometimes I think it's better to do a little less. And I think it's also okay for authors to question themselves and to question their motives. So relating to that decision of writing a black character, I'm 80% sure that I did the right thing, but 20% of me is maybe not so sure, and maybe that's, as a white person, that is a good place to be. First novel. The Long, Long Afternoon is my first novel, which is very exciting, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's the first novel that got published. It's probably the 5th or 6th novel that I have written. And when my editor came to me and said, oh, I was really amazed with your novel, it's so well written and it's so well constructed, I can't believe it's your first book. And I said, well, because it's not my first book. And I'm telling that story because I think there is a myth that sort of an author will have one idea and they will write that idea and out comes a perfect book and that will get published and get famous and that's it. The reality of it is that you will probably write many novels, you start many novels that don't go anywhere, you write many novels that may be good but that aren't interesting for the market. You have to practice writing. It's very important to just get a couple of practice novels out of the way. So if you're interested in writing and in becoming an author, you should just get started with something that you're interested in, but not maybe think that this will be the one final product. If you write a novel and it doesn't get any interest, put it to the side, write the next one, and then eventually you will hit one that will be successful. Change. I think that all stories in a way are about change. I think change is what we are interested in as human beings, because we're all experiencing change all the time, but we're also all interested in how we can bring change about. And The Long Long Afternoon is a novel about a period in time where big change was coming. So it's set in 1959 in America, just before the Cultural Revolution, when everything was it was about to explode in this huge cultural revolution of the hippie movement, you know, the civil rights movement. All of that was about to happen, but it wasn't quite there. And I want to tell you about my second book, which is going to come out in August, and it's called This Wild Wild Country. That is set in 1970. So after all of this change has happened, we're looking at where does that leave us. So if you take the world as it was and you kind of blow it to pieces, you throw out the rule book, you start afresh, does that really give you freedom, or does it make things complicated but in a very different way? So I think maybe change is an ongoing theme in my books, and yeah, I hope if you're interested in change and how to bring change about in the world, I hope you enjoy reading it.